remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I get a bonus if you do, so let's get started. Am I a star? Hello? Mr. Jimmy Fallon? You're quitting your job because you want me to replace you? Hold on, I'm getting another call. Hello?
Hello, Mr. Greg.
I love your videos,
But, you only showed me how to...
read and change data. I never figured out how to write it.
Are you gonna finish that video?
I'm gonna stop you right there. I don't have any more time for Deluge tutorials. You're on your own. I'm sure you can figure it out. What's the worst that could happen? Now then, Mr. Fallon, about that jet.
Oh, okay. If you say so. How hard can it be?
No, Michael, I told you, cancel The Rock and book Dave Bautista. We can't have that much muscle on screen. I already say the coder attempted to add an element to a map instead of using the put... There's still time. I can still save you. I'm Greg with Zenatta Consulting, and today we're going to talk about how to write data in the CRM using a Deluge custom function. Let's get started. Let's pick up where we left off on our last lesson. We got a lead record by ID. We grabbed the first and last name from that lead. Then we checked to see if the name was proper case, and if it wasn't, we fixed it to do so. Then we also got a list of all of the tasks, and then for each of those tasks associated with that lead, we created a number to see how many of those tasks are still open, or at least not completed. Now comes the juicy bit. How do we get this information onto the CRM record? What we're going to do, let's give ourselves a little more room here. So first, let's actually run our code so that we can see all the stuff that we've gotten before, right? We had a name that was all inside of the last name, Adam Smith, changed it to Adam and to Smith. Then we made it proper case, Adam Smith. We got all of the tasks, found the ones that hadn't been started yet, and got that number. So I have the variable counter equals the number of open tasks. So first off, just to fix my old code, and never be afraid to fix your old code. You would be surprised how often you will regret a piece of code you wrote immediately after you wrote it and try to fix it. To make this variable make a little bit more sense, and I do this all the time where I'll create a variable, and then when I find that the variable is being used for something else, I'll change the name of it to more accurately reflect what that variable actually represents. So counter, in this case, is actually our number of open tasks. So I'm going to call this number of open tasks. And I will replace the word counter, all of that. Now to help clean up our console a little bit, since we don't need all of these info statements, I'm going to use forward slashes to comment these out. Well, actually, I'll leave the two proper first names, because those are the variables that we are going to update. Oh, I don't need to info that either. So I have these three variables: new first name proper, new last name proper, and number of open tasks. And I need these values to go onto the lead record, or wherever it is that I'm trying to put them. But in this case, we'll just put them back onto the lead record. Like sending anything through the mail, you can't just put a thing in your mailbox and the Postal Service will know what to do with it. You have to package it correctly, right? You need to put it in a box, put a label on it, put the right identifying terms on that label. We need to do some similar things here with our data. We just have to package it in the right way. Now, the package that most data sits in, at least the data we deal with, is referred to as a JSON map. or a JSON object. We've already dealt with them. The JSON map or object is what comes when we pull a record in by ID, right? So when we grabbed the lead, all of this stuff is a JSON map. This map allows the data to be organized in a way that it can be sent somewhere else and read by another system by using these key and value pairs. To the left is the key, to the right is the value. They also use these curly brackets to denote groupings within the map. So everything is in between two squiggly brackets, curly brackets. I like to say squiggly. I don't know why. It's just fun to say squiggly on a regular basis, especially at your job. But if there is additional information that I want to make sure is grouped together, I can put more squiggly brackets to group other key pairs together, and you can nest maps within maps. Such is the case if we look at owner, right? Because we have a name and an ID and an email, and all three of these are specific to whoever the owner is of that record. And so these all need to be grouped together because they're all referring to one piece of information on the lead, the owner. So we're trying to update the first name and the last name, and then the number of open tasks. So inside of my map here, I'll try searching for name, because most likely it's attached to something called name. And I've got something called full name. There we go. So we've got first name, last name. Now notice that they have underscores in between them. A pretty standard convention is using underscores instead of spaces. A map technically doesn't have to have that, but most of the time this information is traveling over the internet in URLs. And when we're doing that, spaces are no bueno. So we like to use underscores or hyphens sometimes, just something so that it's all technically one string of characters. In any case, let's note last name and first name. We will go back to our function. You can see that we already got the values in the first place using these keys. We also refer to them as API names because this is the name that you use to get that particular field via API. And API is just, it's an acronym for Application Programmatic Interface. Oh, am I right? Oh, very close, very close. Application Programming Interface. Basically, it's just a way to talk to a computer program without having to use computer language, or at least without having to use ones and zeros. Coming back down here, comment out the lead. So we need to package the information into the same packaging format that we got it in, right? Which means that it's going to be first underscore name, a colon, and then the value, which in this case is the variable called new first name proper. We need to do the same thing for the last name and then for the number of open tasks. Now, I don't think we actually had a field for that yet. Search for the word open. Now, how about the word task? So it looks like we got to go make a new field. Go to my settings, modules and fields, go to leads, and let's add a new field with a number. Put that right under last name, and we're going to call it number of open. And then I will save the layout. And now, in order to know, well, what is the API name for that field? We go back to our settings, go down to developer space, APIs, API names, leads, got our leads and fields, and there it is, number of open tasks. And as you can see, Zoho has automatically created the API name for us by simply replacing all of the spaces with underscores. If you have any special characters in your field label, the API name will simply not contain those. It just ignores them. Now you notice there is an edit button here because technically I can edit the API name. Never do this. The reason why is because let's say you make some functions that reference this field. You have to write out number underscore of underscore open underscore tasks in order to get that information or put that information back into the CRM. If this API name changes, if I change it right here, it does not get updated in all of the other functions that I've written before. And so suddenly those functions are going to start breaking. They're not going to work. I don't want to call this number of open tasks. I would actually like to call it open task count. So I'll go back to customization, modules and fields, leads. I'll change this to open task count. And then we will hit save and close. So I've changed the label, but if I go back and check my API names, the API name for open task count here has stayed the same, specifically so that if any functions were referencing this variable, they won't break just because I changed the field label. And so what I'm saying is that if I wanted to make the API name match the field label here, I could edit it here. I should only allow myself to do that if it is right after I have created the field and before I have ever written any functions. Because believe me, you do not want to run the risk of changing one of these names and then having Susan over in accounting call you in a panic saying, the emails aren't going out, the emails aren't going out, because you wanted to change an API name. Don't do it. Not even for a second. So we're just going to go ahead and leave it as number of open tasks. Number of, let's see, is it a capital of? It's not. See, I should just go ahead and copy the API name and then just paste it in. Get rid of the ED for edit. Nobody wants ED. Anyway, our number of open tasks. There's our variable. All these pieces are now packaged individually, but really they should be packaged together. If we take a look at how JSON is structured, the pairs of keys and values are separated by commas, and then one set of squiggly brackets all encompassing them. So rather than having all these individual ones, let's just add some commas. There we go. That is a map. And then I will give this a variable name. So we'll call it update information. Now we can run an update. So zoho.crm, I have the update record option where I pass in the module. We've done this before. Leads, then our ID, which I have from earlier in the function, lead ID, and then key value data map. That's referring to the map that I just made. So I will replace this update information. Now I need to assign this to a variable. So I'll call this run update, and then let's run update. Something to watch out for. Sometimes when you are starting to write a function and then you select the autocomplete option, it won't replace what you've already been typing. It will simply add the variable name to what you've already typed, such as what happened right here. So keep an eye out for that. Stay vigilant. Stay alert. Stay alive. Okay, looks like I got a return statement here saying that there's a new modified time on the lead. So let's go and take a look at that lead. It was Adam Smith. We'll grab the lead ID here, go to leads, and looks like there he is, Adam Smith. Double check, that is the same lead ID. Yes, it is. Let's take a look at the timeline of the record. And yes, I can see that just 1 minute ago, the last name was updated from Adam Smith to just Smith. And then the first name was updated from a blank value to Adam. And open task count was updated from a blank value to the number 2. We've updated a lead record. If you have a lot of pieces of information to update on a record, writing out the data like this, imagine one of these, but now I'm updating 20, 30, 50 fields. This is a little hard to put together. You know, it could be a little clunky. Deluge has a set of functions that they call map functions that are specifically created to build these JSON data maps. So I'm going to do update information, and I'm going to say that that equals map and an open close parentheses. The open close parentheses means that this is a function that I'm running, right? It's not a variable. Simply creates an empty set of brackets ready to receive key value pairs. So that now when I reference this, if I do the dot after the variable name, I get specifically the functions that pertain to maps. So in this case, I want to put these pieces of information inside of this map so that at the end, it will look like this. So fortunately, there is a nice put function. So if I type put, then it asks for two arguments, the key and the value. So the key would be the API name. So we'll do first, and then the value in this case is going to be our variable first name. Then on a brand new line, I'm going to repeat the process for the other variables. Last name, new last name, and number of open tasks, number of open tasks. And now let's info update information. So I've noticed something in my code that has done something I didn't actually want it to do. So this is a good thing that we're seeing an error here. Gives us a chance to fix something that we didn't think about. So as you can see, when I ran it this time, the first name and the last name are coming through as null. They're coming in as empty. That's because we've already updated this lead once before. And here we have that we only create the proper versions of the names if the first name is equal to null and the last name contains a space. So really what we should do is I should adjust this if statement to be up here. And then I'm actually going to change this to be the original variable names. So this way, now there is a first and last name, but they're just not proper, then we'll at least always move them into proper case. But now we'll only do the name splitting if there is no first name and then if the last name contains a space. So let's run this again. Okay, good. So we're back to having Adam Smith with two open tasks. Here in my info statement, there is my beautiful map all built for me. And now much easier at first glance to read and see how is my map being structured. And believe it or not, that's all you need to do in order to update a record. Figure out the API names of the fields that you want to update, create a map, and put the values that you want updated into that map, associating them to the proper API names. Then using a Zoho dot, and not just the CRM, you could do Zoho dot books, and there's an update record. You could do Zoho inventory update record, Zoho desk. Depending on which service you're accessing, you may have to package things a little bit differently, but the way to know how those things should be packaged, all you have to do is go to the Deluge help documentation. We'll go to Deluge help, click on integrations, click on predefined integrations with Zoho services, and now I'll find the app that I'm trying to connect to. So let's say if I wanted to make a Zoho desk, then I'll click on Zoho desk integration tasks, and I have update record here. And here I have an example of how I should structure using the zoho.desk.update function inside of Deluge. And it explains that I need to include an organization ID for my desk organization, then specify the module name, very similar to the CRM, then the record ID, then the key value. So key value refers to the maps that we've been building of how the record needs to be updated. And then there's an additional link here that I can click here and see in the more detailed API documentation, how should a specific record be built. I could come over here to the left and see, let's say in desk, I want to update a ticket, right? That's a pretty common thing to do. Then over here on the left, I'll keep an eye out for where are tickets, and there they are right there. And there's update a ticket. And then here I have the list of attributes that I can update. And all of these attributes, this is the same thing as looking up the API names in the CRM, right? So if I want to update the subject of a ticket, I create a map, and then I put in that map the word subject as the key, and then whatever I want that subject to be as the value. There you have it. We've done all three things now. We got stuff, we changed stuff, and then we sent stuff. As I said in the first video, that's all these tasks ever are. The same three things. Now, the last piece here, now that we have this function working, right now, it's only working specifically on the Adam Smith record. But if we want this to work on additional records, we have to make sure that we're using dynamic arguments. So rather than having the lead ID defined by hand up here, I'm going to go to edit arguments, and I'm going to add it as a parameter. And it's an int, integer, string, date. Float is like decimals, and then Boolean, true or false. This is going to be an integer because it's just one big long number. We'll hit save. And so now when I hit save and execute, it asks for me to insert a lead ID. So I could keep testing with other leads here, But now we're actually going to attach this function to a workflow rule. So now if I come to automation and workflow rules, and I create a new rule, we'll have this on the leads module. The rule name will be check lead name and open tasks. And we'll do this when a lead record is created or edited. And I'll go ahead and have this apply to all leads. And now for my instant action, I'm going to select function. And then you could actually start writing a function from here, but we've already written ours in the editor. So we'll actually click on the second option here, functions created by users in your organization. And you can see there's all these existing functions, and we want, there it is, my little function. I will click configure, and now I need to do some argument mapping, right? We defined that there's a lead ID that needs to go in here in order for the function to run. So now inside of this value box, I'm going to do the hash symbol, which allows me to add a merge field. And so I will select the leads. And then for the field, I will select the lead ID, and I'll hit done. And now save and associate. Great. Fantastic. And believe it or not, that's all there is to it. Get stuff, change stuff, send stuff. I'm Greg with Zenatta Consulting. If you enjoyed this series, please consider liking and subscribing. Not only does it give my ego a boost, but it also gets this video in front of others that need it, as well as getting you more videos like it. Also in the description, you can find useful links to the Zenatta resource library. It includes links to this video, as well as a myriad of others on any other Zoho product. Also, you can visit Club Zenatta, a free community forum where we post code snippets, share answers, and announce upcoming events. We'll see you in the next video.